And welcome back to part 19. Okay, so we're on the spokes, so let's get started with that. So the thing with the spokes here, there are all kinds of overs and unders, and there's shading and ins and outs with those. For the beginning of this, I'm gonna try to ignore some of it. So I'm gonna look at the overall values of each one of the spokes, and that's kind of how I'm going to attack this. So for instance, let me get you close. Well, you can see it. I'm going to try to start with these spokes that are sort of in the back, and then I'm going to try to work forward. Now again, there are a lot of interweaving going on there, so I'm not going to stress too much about it. But if I try to work back to front, I'll do a lot of those over unders automatically. So there's a lot of ways to tackle this, and this is just one that kind of keeps my brain from exploding, essentially. So the overall color of the spokes is a is that yellowy steel color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up some white with yellow ochre and a touch of black to kind of neutralize it a little bit. Maybe a little bit of blue as well, just to kind of give it that, you know, that metal feel, because it is very yellow. So again, I'm not sure what the spokes are actually made out of. Excuse me, but they oxidize in a kind of an odd way. All right. So I've got a fairly dark color. So what I'm going to do is I have this multi-rail. You can use really any ruler. I really like this because it's got a felt foam back on it, and it's got the raised edge and everything. So to do straight lines, this is a really a neat tool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick an easy one to start, and then I'll find all the other ones as I go. So this one right here is probably one of the easier ones. So what I do is I just kind of visually line up the edge of the ruler with that line over here. So it's parallel to it. It's not lined up like a ruler would be, like if you're drawing that line. But it's kind of, you know, I could see that it's parallel to the spoke I want to do. So that way what I'm doing is, excuse me, I'm using the ruler as just a guide to guide the paintbrush. And during all that talking, I'm sure this paint has dried out. And that just lets me paint a straight line, you know? It's just really quick and easy, and it works really well. Again, I'm not, you know, there's something that crosses over this one. I'm not worried about that, really. I just want to get in the spoke. I can always adjust them and add those over-unders and all that after. All right, so let's pick another one now that I'm starting to get stuff done. All right, so there's one that's here. This can be, especially spokes like this can be very like overwhelming and confusing because, again, we've seen spokes all our lives on our bikes, on our pedal bikes, on motorcycles, all that fun stuff. And so we know what they're supposed to look like. So again, this is a good instance where my brain is jumping in saying, oh yeah, it's supposed to look like this. And it really doesn't. So I have to really like just turn my brain off and say, okay, just paint what you see or you're going to get overwhelmed. Excuse me. First talking of the day, so I apologize. This one in the back has a little bit more brown. You can also see it a little more than I've got it here. So I mixed up a little bit lighter tan color. In fact, down the bottom here, it's very bright. So this will work out well. Yeah. And this is like a process, like anything else. So it starts out when, especially if you've never done anything like this, it starts off overwhelming. And then as you start getting into it, you start learning how to do it, essentially, while you're working on it. And that's something I really like, because as I get into it, then it becomes more clear, and I'm like, oh, now I think I get it. And it becomes easier. So in the beginning, it's always like, you know, oh my gosh, what's going on? This is crazy. And then it cools off a little bit. All right, so there's a nice one, long one going all the way through here. So I'm going to grab that one next. And that's a little bit lighter than the others. Find it again. Now, obviously, I'm being real careful with the ruler. Should put a piece of paper down, which probably isn't a bad idea. But well, I want to protect the rest of the painting, even though there's not anything really going on here yet. It's a really good habit to get into. Because if I had done all that painting and I'm dropping this metal ruler on the painting, I'm pretty much guaranteeing that I'm going to scratch it or do something terrible to it. You can also do a practice run too. So I've got the ruler lined up with that spoke, and I'm hovering just over where it's going to go, and I can do a little practice run to make sure I'm in the right spot, and that way I can adjust it. Plus, obviously, I can adjust the line itself by tilting the paintbrush either way. But I mean, I don't want to get into that because then because then what'll happen is the line won't be straight because I'll be on the fly adjusting it. But if I start it and it's going sideways, that's the way I do it. This paint is fairly thin in the brush, and that is because I'd rather have smooth flowing and even distribution than automatic coverage. So I'd rather go over it a bunch of times, very much like I do with the airbrush. I'm trading that opacity for control. So it's not as opaque as it could be if I just did it, right from the palette. But get you guys closer. I realize you're looking at reference more than what I'm doing. So that's it. So I trade opacity for control. So I can have a little bit more control, but it doesn't cover as well. All right, I've lost a bunch of lines in here, so it's getting a little confusing. So I'm going to pick something that I can see, like this cross over here is very bright white. So I think I'm going to do that one just to get that locked in. This one's on, like, pretty much on the front of the bike. Like it's the closest to us, but I really feel like if I get this one in, then I'll be able to kind of figure out where the other ones go. Again, it's like a roadmap. When you start getting things in, points of reference, it makes it easier for me to see where all the other ones are. So this one goes, yeah. This one goes right through the whole thing. Did miss on that one, but that's okay. So yeah, so I missed the gap right there a little bit, but I can adjust that. And the shades out, it gets shaded way, a lot at the top, so I'm also not worried about that. Okay, so that's that one. Where's that one? Also, having the reference at the same angle with something like this is huge too. Let me move this closer so maybe you can see both. Like that. So if I have this at the same angle, stuff out of the way. Actually, I'm going to move this down a bit. There we go. Something like that will give you both. Okay. So if I have the reference lined up with the photo with the painting. That helps me a lot. If I get into turning this to do the line and the reference photo isn't turned, it becomes very confusing. So, all right, I think I'm going to get this one next. So I'll look at them, figure out which one I'm going to get, and then turn it. So same thing. There's one right here that I think will make a lot of sense if I grab. Since I usually film Open Studio first thing in the morning, I apologize for the grumbliness. It's crazy. I should do, like, speaking exercises before I start in the morning. literally go from, you know, sleeping and not talking to talking nonstop. So, all right, so that's a good one right there. This one came out way too thick. I'm disappointed that I screwed that up so bad. And it's one of the most important ones. It's like right out in the open. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to fix this one first. This one here is what I'm talking about. The one I just did, the one out in front of everything. Yeah, that came out crappy. So, so the way I'm going to fix it is just going to shave off bits and pieces of it. So on the palette, I still have all the... Now you guys are seeing this a week later, but literally I filmed these right in a row. So I still have all the paint from the hub from the last episode, and it's still wet. So that's actually fortunate, because what that'll allow me to do is to clean this up, because I have the color handy. So I can kind of go in and just kind of shave the other side of that line to kind of clean it up. Yeah, that was a pretty crappy attempt on my part. Again, that was that's impatience. You know, that's like just going for it before I was ready, before I really had the line set and lined up. And this is what happens, you know. It causes a repair, you know. It's not it's not terrible repair, but still, going backwards when you want to go forwards is not that much fun. I'm trying to spin that around. Really get at the other side of that. Yeah. Okay. So what I'm doing is I have that's this steel gray right here, ish, right in that area. That's what I have on the brush right now. So I'm doing the same thing I did before with the other repairs. I'm kind of taking the curse off first, thinning that line down. I'm not worried about the dark area behind it, you know, like that I'm missing, because I can just go back in real quick and reintroduce that, like where this line is. This little, you know, darker detail. I can go in with the darker color after and just, you know, pop that back in. Like that. That's much, much, much better. So that's the other, you know, the other thing I learned painfully and early on, that things have to be pretty catastrophic. You know, things have to go sideways pretty hard for me to have to abort an entire painting. And that's, you know, it happened a lot when I was younger. So I would get to a point where I'd be really frustrated with it wasn't coming out right, and I would just say, I got to get rid of it, I got to start over. So thankfully, as I kind of went along, I realized, you know, that things go sideways all the time. You know, that it's never, I'm glad that people look at like a finished painting of mine, and I'm not glad, but I mean, I understand that people look at a finished painting of mine and see all the things that went right, because that was wrestled into existence. That wasn't that everything just happened automatically. In fact, you know, like I call all these paintings, they're all wrestling matches. They're all tractor pulls till the end. So, you know, it's one thing I stress when I talk to people who are kind of getting into it and learning, and that that stuff goes wrong all the time, no matter where you are on the scale. The difference is the more experience you have, the more you know how to fix those things, and you're not panicked and, you know, saying I've ruined this thing. And I have old paintings of mine. I have the very first aviation prints that I did. One of the paintings has 2 other versions of it that I started and then just stopped because something went sideways, something wasn't quite right, and I didn't know how to fix it, so it was easier to start over. So I guess that's all I can say, is that, you know, stuff happens all the time. And in a lot of ways, I mean, it's like anything, you know, if a journey was easy, would it really be worth it? You know, would it really give you the same satisfaction when you were done? So it's the same thing with these paintings. You know, when I finish a painting and it's finally done, and it comes out, you know, the way that I had seen it in my head when I started. You know, that's to know that I had issues with it or problems that were solved and I got through it. That's a big part of that creative process, and the feeling of success when you're done with something. So that little spoke is a perfect example of that. So I had to do all that repair on it, but it's done and it works. I didn't have to blow out the whole thing and repaint it or do anything like that. Nothing crazy. So again, that comes from having made that mistake before and then knowing a little bit how to fix it, or having a good idea how to fix it. All right, moving on. Now the only problem with doing this guy here, this long one right here, is when I do the ones behind, I do have to skip it. It's not a big deal, but this is where doing the others, the ones in back first, would have made more sense, because I could just paint that white one over it. But I'll do the one behind now. Since that is another really long one that kind of goes through the whole wheel. It starts here and it runs all the way through. So this time we're not gonna, it goes, what does it do there with that one? Oh, it's above it, okay. Or below it. So I'm still not on track. I think the ruler was moving before too. Fortunately, it's a darker color, so. So in some instances like this one, where it kind of moves from light to dark, and dark to light, you know, back and forth as it kind of hits shadow, I can kind of treat it that way too. So this part here is very dark, where it kind of goes behind this spoke. But then it lightens up as it goes into here. So I can just switch up on the palette, grab the lighter color, and do the highlights for this spoke too. This one goes behind this one too. And again, I can make adjustments on all this. You know, I can tint it, shade it, shadow it, that kind of thing. I'm really just trying to lay them in now to kind of keep things under control. All right, I want this one here, because this is an important one, and it kind of goes behind all the ones in front. So I don't want to do this after. Let's see, I have to turn this one, get this to work. And this one goes behind the hub, so I just got to line it up this way. There we go. Now where I kind of put the brakes on as it got close to the spoke, I can, once I get more paint in the brush. So I held up before I got to the line because I was more concerned with the ruler to get that line straight. As far as where it crosses underneath this one, you know, I could do that without the ruler, and it's more accurate because I can just kind of get in there and put it in the right spot. Same thing down near the hub, where it kind of goes around the back side of the hub and then comes through. That's good. Okay, good. Yeah, and it's just rinse and repeat, really, over and over again. I should put on my fancy glove so I don't get stuff all over this painting. All right, so the next one is going to be the rest of this spoke right here, which I started. It's really tiny. Just that right there. And since I'm in the neighborhood, see now it's starting to gel for me. I'm starting to see more as I get into this. So it's becoming less and less overwhelming, and it happens this way all the time with this stuff. You know, it's like like I said, at first when I look at all the spokes, I'm like, how am I gonna sort this out? You know, it's like crazy. But after a little while, it starts to make sense. All right, there's the next one I'm gonna grab, and this one goes. No, it doesn't. Okay. And it goes behind everything, right? Sure does. Okay. Oops, except that one. I'll have to fix that. I went over it. Okay. So fix that right there. It goes under the dark one that I just put in. That's an easy repair. So that, you know, that's not a problem. It's by connecting the dot. And it got a little fat here too, so I'm going to fix that too. And again, this is the thing. Like, I could leave that spoke. It's a little bit heavy. Like, I hit it a little bit too hard. I could leave it. You know, it's not going to, I mean, in the whole grand scheme of things, it's going to be difficult to tell that one spoke is a little bit heavier. But the point of these paintings is that nothing that's left behind. Everything is done as good as I can do it. So if I see something like that, it gets fixed. So I'm just using the background color again and just kind of shaving the excess off to get that down to the right size. I realized I went over that one too. So let's get that back in. That. Need a little bit more on that. So back to the same thing. I was looking at this painting when I finished after the last episode, and you know, I'm looking at the HD stencil here, and you know, when HD started doing their thing, you know, I could tell they were going to get the grumbling. It's like, what you're doing is cheating. Like, it lays everything out for you in one shot, and it's cheating and all this stuff. So I will give to you guys that we are on episode 19. We spent 8 hours on this front wheel, and the majority of that 19 hours was not the HD stencil. So you see what I'm saying? So as far as putting it down and being a cheat, it's a big part of what this painting is, because it saved me the 5 hours it would have taken to draw this on here and go back and forth and, you know, mess with it. But as far as what it does for the painting, like how the painting is really what it is. It's not the HD stencil, and that's super important. So yeah, I thought I knew that what was going to happen with them, that, you know, they were going to not get flack, but people will be saying, oh, you know, it's a crutch and it's a cheat and all this stuff. But in the grand scheme of things, while it is very cool and it's very awesome, it's like the very, like, just, it's the first step of a 1,000-mile journey. You know what I mean? It's I don't want to say it's minor, but gosh, there's so much more to this painting than that HD stencil. It just saved me a couple hours in the beginning. And I'll say it again. It's not a substitute for being able to draw. If you have a difficult time drawing and creating art, the HD stencil isn't going to solve that for you, because essentially what I'm doing with the rest of this painting is drawing with paint. So you do need to know that stuff. If you're a better painter than you are a pencil, you know, with a pencil, it's going to help you out a lot. It's just going to make your life easier. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for, you know, getting to what we want to do, the creative parts that we want to do, just unleashing that creativity. All right. Let's see. I want to get the one that runs through here, because I don't have any indication of it. I went right over it. No, I did do it. See, this is where it starts to get confusing. That one is the one I was just looking at. Let's do this one. Oh boy, did I get that one? I got that one. So yeah, we're doing this one. So this one starts here and ends here. Okay, yeah. Is it? Oh, it's way above. See, almost blew that one. No, it isn't. This one. So it starts down here and goes up here. That's where we're at. Okay. Yep. Yep. As I'm doing all this, the paint is surely drying in the brush. But, like I said, take your time, get it done, and get it done right. There we go. So, I mean, the paint did dry in that brush. So it didn't give me like, you know, a really nice line, but it did give me a line. So that's all I really need to start. So now now it's easy to follow. There's a lot of shading on this. Actually, the bottom half of this is a lot darker. So we'll darken that up. There we go. Yeah, there's shading on the bottom of that one too. So I will grab that when I can. Just going to make sure that I got, you know, get the foundation in right. And that'll work. Let me see now. Yeah. Oh, that's the one that was, yeah, there's that one there. Got that one. Oh, I got that. So wait, there should be three. Yeah, three going across here. I got that. I got that one. I got that one. Oh, that one I didn't continue. No, I did continue. I just can't see it. Okay, so there's a bright one over here. All right, we're getting there. Spoked wheels are my favorite, but they're also, you know, the bane of my existence. I love the way they come out in the end, but they are a lot of work. And I'm keying up to do another painting now with a car with spoked wheels, which I really love doing. But again, it's a complete. It can be crazy. There we go. There's that one. Oh, let me grab that one again. So I didn't do that originally. Just mixing paint. The wet palette is great, and it holds the paint for a while. So sometimes, I mean, like anything, sometimes I run out. All right, this one goes all the way down, so this is a good one. This one goes all the way down here, which I don't have. I started it, but I never finished it. I also don't know if that goes above or below. Oh, it goes above. Okay, that's not a problem. This one right here, it crosses over this one right here. So again, it's not a big deal. And actually that was the way to do that. Since I wasn't sure, it's better to go underneath it than go over it. That way I can just add the missing piece. Or if I go over it, then I have to, you know, remix the other color of the other one underneath to fix it. This way it's already in the brush. So I'm just mixing up a little bit more of that. What I got to do, and it will happen. So what's going to happen is, as I progress with these open studios and get all the gear working the way I need to work, there's going to be a second camera that will be on all the time, like a separate window up at the top, and it'll be a shot of just the palette. So you'll be able to see the colors that I'm mixing up. That's just something I got to take a few minutes to do. So that you'll probably see that before the end of this series, and then all the subsequent series will have that same kind of thing. All right, so what's going on over here? Is that that's the edge of the hub? Oh, okay. That little part right there I didn't finish, that's the hub. So again, this wet palette is great because I still have all the hub colors on the palette and they are still wet. So I'm going to add the hub in here now, which is here. And that actually explains a bunch. I was trying to figure out where I was off on this corner down here. And what was going on was I painted the fender all the way down when really it isn't there. It's the hub that kind of keeps going down here. Like that. So we'll throw that in now. Actually, sit back a little bit. I kind of put that in a little bit too high, so we'll get this in all the way, and then I'll pull it back a little bit. Some black in that. What I'm doing is I'm trying to make it match this. And that's partially airbrushed, so it's, a little bit tricky. I don't want to pull out the airbrush just for this little spot. I'm going to try to make it work. I only have to cover that little corner, and now I can straighten it out. So I grab the color that's back here, this dark brown, and now I can just kind of sit back and shave this down until that hub matches this, this line right here. There's a nice spoke back there too, which I'll get in a second. Still feels like it's too tall. So what I'm doing is I'm shaving down this edge, and then I'm like leaning back to see this entire oval here. So that way I can get this line the way it should be. So it still feels a little tall. That's good. That's good. I wish I could explain, like, for me like that, what I just did there. So I was trying to make it, kind of follow that continuous line. The only way I can describe it to you guys, and I don't know, this is why I do this kind of stuff, I don't know if this is a teachable moment. For me with ovals and things like that, when I get it to the right spot, it feels right. I won't, you would think you'd see it and it looks right, but to me I can feel it. I can feel when it's right. And I can't describe it any more than that. And that's mostly true with circular things, but it can also be true with squares. Anything with a hard geometric shape, something that's very identifiable and very clean and very, you'd know if anything was wrong on it. Like if you, draw a circle with a template, that circle is perfect and you know it, where if you draw it freehand, you can see all little imperfections. So when I start to remove those imperfections in what I'm doing, and I get it to the point where it's really close to being, really correct, it feels right to me. So I don't know. Like I said, I know that doesn't help people much when you're trying to learn, but I don't know. Maybe it does. Maybe you'll feel the same way. When you get it right, it'll feel right to you too. But if it doesn't, I apologize. I don't know. All right, let's get this one. I'm at a weird angle here, but let's turn it. Yeah, it's better. That go through there? Sure does. So another neat trick too, this goes over this one, is to do the like I'm doing this line, and the spoke has a certain weight to it. So another good trick is to put that line in thinner than it needs to be in the beginning, and then thicken it up. So once it's in the right spot and I've got the ruler lined up, then I can go over it and thicken it. And the way I thicken it is really simple. It's basic brush maneuvers. So I push the brush a little bit harder and it spreads the bristles out, making a slightly thicker line. And so that works out really well. All right, so now that I've got it in, I can look at it to see that actually goes over everything. So I can do the same thing. So the spots where I kind of went underneath because I wasn't sure, because I couldn't see the reference, and it gets dark, really dark here, so I'm going to redo that anyway. Okay. Actually, we'll do that now since, again, I'm thinking about it. If I leave it, I'll probably forget where that one was. It gets all crazy. And that one, yeah, goes under everything. Okay. So when this episode airs, it will be the week of Christmas. So happy holidays to everyone who's celebrating. There we go. There we go. I feel like I'm missing one in the middle here. Oh, I know what I'm missing. It's not really I'm missing one. There's a highlight on that, which is brightening it up. Maybe I'll do that now. So what I'm looking at is the spoke that's running here. So it's got a pretty bright highlight on the top of it. Wait. No, it doesn't. It's not the one. See what I mean? It gets, oh, this is the one I was looking at. Okay. This one here is the one I'm looking at. So as it passes out into the sun, or no, into the light, I'm sorry, this is indoors. It's got a pretty bright white highlight on this part of it right here, and that's kind of throwing me off because I'm looking at my painting and it feels like something's missing, and it really wasn't. It was the spoke was already in, but the highlight was not. The same thing with this one up here. So since I've got the majority of the spokes in now, I can start adding those, some of those highlights that are in there. Sometimes, you use a ruler. Sometimes if it's a short run, like over here, I can just go for it. It depends on, really where it falls. This here, interesting. This little wedge right here I gotta fix, because this wedge right here is the background, and you can see it's clearly not the same color. So I gotta make this look like this. Do I do that with the airbrush? No, because it's not as big as it should be. What I have here is not entirely what it needs to be. It's really, half of this is, well, I can use this. Half of this is the highlight on the other fork, the front, and this little tiny wedge right here is the background. So I wasn't as far off as I thought, which is good. If that whole triangle was background, I was 80% sure I was going to grab the airbrush, because even though it's really tiny comparatively, that's big enough that if I do that with the paintbrush, you'll be able to tell the difference between the two because of the techniques or the way that the airbrush puts stuff down as opposed to the paintbrush. So in that case, in an area that you'd really see it, I would pull out the airbrush and redo the steps that I did on the background right here. But because it's so small, I can do the same thing I did down here with the hub and just kind of mimic it with the paintbrush. So I did it with white just to kind of block off the orange to get that out of there, and now I'll put in gray to, kind of stipple gray in to start to look more like what's going on over here. And then it's the same thing as the hub, it's not a shape now, it's a color. So what I do is I do a little bit of it like this, I gotta let it dry anyway. So I do a little bit of it, then I lean way back and I look at it and even squint my eyes, and that way I'll start to see the value in the color, and I say, okay, it's too blue, or it's too blah blah blah, or it doesn't have enough texture, or whatever. And it's just rinse and repeat until it looks close to what it should look like. This is black now, but it's really reduced. So I'm just trying to tone the value down a little bit, but also add a little bit more texture to it. Same thing, step back a little bit, and yeah, looking good. All right, so I got carried away with this one. I'm sorry. I didn't even realize we've gone 10 minutes over, so heapers. All right, anyway, let me back you guys up. I'll show you where we're at. But that was good. That was good. So what we're going to do when we get back, I'll zoom out a little bit. Oh, that was great. I love getting like totally like absorbed and lose track of time. All right, so there we go. So yeah, so when we come back on episode 20, we'll be able to finish those spokes, and really now this whole area is going to be done, which is exciting, because that's it's a good chunk of the painting. It's probably an eighth of the painting, and it'll be done. So that's always fun. I do put a little shading under here, but that's minor. It's easy. All right, so don't forget, like and subscribe, and please click that bell icon and share this video, yeah, that's what we got. All right, so for Steve Leahy and Open Studio, I will catch you guys all on the next one.